a convicted lifestyle is, man, I know I'm going to fail. So let me just identify it earlier, fail faster, fail cheaper, come up, get up, dust myself off, lick my wounds, learn from it, and say, how can I do this better next time?
Well, welcome back to another episode of Good Business. Guys, I'm so excited to have a special guest, Rod Smith, on. He's with EOS, and he's actually our implementer here at Good Agency. And today we're going to be talking about EOS, the Entrepreneur Operating System. And I'll let Rod share the most about that. But the reason why he's on is he and I got connected on LinkedIn. And the thing that stood out to me the most is the shared values. And he cares about running a good business. And so that's why you're here, Rod. Thanks for making the hike in this morning, and I'm excited to dive into our conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. Me too.
Awesome. Well, Rod, would you mind just introducing yourself? I know I gave a very quick overview, but what's your background? How'd you get to be at EOS?
Yeah, so the way it works is I've been running and owning businesses for decades. And there was this junction in my life where my business was growing rapidly. It transcended my abilities, and I needed help. And in that space and time, I started looking at a bunch of different systems out there. EOS is one of them, and it resonated with me. I ended up running that company and my next two on EOS. And it's from that experience that it's like when God opened up a new chapter of my life, it was a really strong pull and draw. As I heard from him to walk through that door, I became an EOS implementer.
I love it.
So that's how I've seen both sides of the kitchen door, so to speak. I know how the sausage is made, and I've enjoyed the bratwurst.
I love that analogy. You must be from New Braunfels or something, right?
Yeah, imagine that.
Well, Rod, I love that background. Would you mind kind of explaining a little bit more about what you saw happen when you implemented EOS for your business?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that motivates us typically to move is a pain to relieve or a gain to create. And I was experiencing both in that season of life. And when I implemented EOS, it just, it calmed the noise. It calmed the noise for me as a leader, for my desire to implement all of these good ideas that felt like bolt-on principles and components rather than a seamlessly beautiful, seamless woven garment, right? And when I experienced EOS in the business, the water level rose to the point where the systemization that is inherent with running your business on a system like EOS is wonderful because it makes your job easier as a leader. You don't have to keep all the same plates spinning. When I say the water level rose, it's like we've risen with the tide to the point where those places where all the old fires used to start up no longer have fuel. Because they're submerged under a raised competency, capability, taxonomy, language, and system that the whole organization gets to benefit from.
Well, that all sounds like a dream come true, and almost like a pipe dream for some business owners. They're like, "Hey, that sounds great, but that could never work in my business, right?" Why would you say? Well, actually, let me hold that question for a second. When a business owner is struggling, I mean, I would try to equate it with someone who's drowning. I mean, it's just overwhelmed. Decisions aren't being made very wisely. They're made out of survival, not out of vision. And personally, when I brought on the EOS framework into the business with my leadership team back in 2000, I want to say 16. That was a game changer. But it required me to say, hey, I'm going to stop scrambling and I'm going to sit down and we're going to get this organized. So it kind of took that decision to really cause everything to actually happen. Like it takes a level of healthiness to be willing to do EOS. So it all sounds great, but I think some business owners they struggle with the decision of, hey, owning a framework. They got their own thing working, right? I'm sure you probably hear that all the time. So would you kind of highlight for me what the framework even is? I know we're using inside language right now, EOS, assuming people know what it is. The Entrepreneur Operating System. Tell me what it is. Tell me why someone should invest their time and say, hey, look, I'm going to get healthy. I'm going to go start working out. I'm going to go to the gym, proverbially speaking.
Yeah, I think I've heard all of that and more, and honestly experienced most of it too. I think anytime we're devising a solution to our current state or plan or need, we have to look at it through three primary lenses. And I use a metaphor or analogy of healthcare, which is where some of my companies have been in that space. Sometimes we're on the operating room table and we need to have a triage response. It's like I've got to get healthy in a hurry, otherwise I won't live to fight another day, kind of thing. And then there's a chronic response. I'm still going to die. I'm just going to die more slowly. Well, what is my strategy to fix that? And then where we all want to be is in a wellness response. It's like, oh, I'm just now fine tuning and tweaking and optimizing. So to go back to your question, when you're in that motivated state, I need to change. Something is prompting me, urging me. That still small voice is moving me in a direction. Well, why is it? Pain to relieve, gain to create. What EOS does at a high level is it solves for three things: vision, traction, and healthy. If we don't get 100% of everybody aligned around what matters, what's important, what true north looks like, then everything downstream of that is corrupt, if not absolutely broken. So we all have to get on the same page. And the attraction is just say, hey, we have to get everybody operating in a way that we are completing our plans to fulfill that vision. And we work with the senior leadership team because as the head goes, so goes the body. If the leadership team can do it, then everybody else can see, hey, this isn't just a flavor of the month. And then healthy, just because you put a bunch of well-meaning, talented people together, doesn't mean you know how to be a good team, much less have fun doing it.
Yeah.
So as we take those senior teams through vision, traction, and healthy, alignment to the vision, how to operationalize ourselves to accomplish that vision, and then ultimately have fun doing it, we model that for the rest of the organization to the point where now we have something that's working, it's credible, and it's worth following.
That's gold. And I mean, getting your people to adopt this. So I'm working with an organization right now, and I'm unofficially taking them through an annual meeting on Monday and Tuesday next week. And I'll just say this. They are the stereotypical example of where you have maybe two people on the team that are, we're bought into EOS. And then everybody else is like, no, we're not actually doing that. And so what our goal is to get everybody aligned. What would you say is is it even worth trying EOS if you can't get your team all bought into it? And how do you get people to overcome that? I know that that's a deep question, but.
Well, great question, because if you don't get buy-in, you're stuck at your first step. But at the same time, if you don't get buy-in, you won't fulfill your vision. You won't walk through that door of opportunity, no matter what it looks like or what shape it shows up in. So I think my answer is a bit of if somebody has a hammer, everything they look like, everything you want to hit looks like a nail. My answer is a little bit one note in that respect, that in both scenarios, you need something to bring you together. And EOS is a wonderful platform and tool. Like I said, I chose it from a list of 4 that I vetted back in the day. And while I'm only an expert in EOS now, because that's the lane that I've invested into, what I would say is you've got to challenge status quo or safe, complacent thinking. So if a leader in that position say, hey, I've got a couple of people on board and a couple of people on the fence and a couple of people who are just absolutely got their heels dug in, I've got to shake that up.
Yep.
And EOS provides that good, healthy, common platform to say, hey, are we really on the same team or not? And if we are, then let's rally around this. What is our rallying cry? And starting with vision, like what you're going to do with the group that you're working with, is a good place to start, because if you can't get aligned around your vision, then everything else is going to be clumsy at best, if not absolutely broken. And then the flip side of it is, if you can't get aligned, then you probably need to say goodbye to some people.
Yep.
As hard as that sounds, you're gonna be very frustrated. A frustrated leader, leading frustrated people, and really, if we are looking at our business in such a way that we believe that it's not our business, but it's God's business that's been stewarded to us, that we get to lead on His behalf, then we can't treat this lightly.
I couldn't agree more. And just in light of my reference to the company I'm guiding, I would say that the common situation that I've seen is you've got someone who might be an employee who really, really loves traction, and they're technically what we would call the integrator, the guy who's leading the company, really. But then if you're founder, you're quote unquote visionary, if they're not bought in and not willing to commit to the process, that's where I've seen it fail. And that's what we're trying to overcome with this one company, is getting the founder to step out of the integrator seat and own their vision seat. And I think it's a process. I love how EOS gives you scoring metrics to know how close you are aligned with the, I guess, percentage of adoption of the VTO and of traction. But what I would love to just kind of pivot to, because we're talking about EOS from the standpoint of businesses thriving, businesses struggling. What are the kind of first steps someone should take when they're thinking, hey, how do we do EOS for ourselves? Is it required to get an implementer? Do they need to read the book Traction? I mean, what do you say the first step should be for a business trying to get traction?
Yeah, well, it's kind of like anything else you want to try. You got to do your homework. You got to invest into it and make yourself smart. And one of the things that I do with my clients, or even prospects all the time, even if I'm just here to, in a moment over coffee, to help somebody get unstuck. It doesn't matter what you choose, frankly. You've got to choose something. Indecision is your biggest problem, and probably only preceded by ignorance. So invest into it a little bit. And I would say, there's plenty of on-screen content, YouTube channels, videos, and things like that would augment a learning journey. But there's 7 books now in the EOS or Traction library. And the primary, the guidebook, the heavy hitter, is Traction. Yep. So I would suggest reading that. If you want some lighter fare to kind of get an idea, you can read What the Heck is EOS? ? It's a good starter. And then there's a book called Get a Grip. And Get a Grip is just a fable, a story written as a fable, taking a fictional leader and company through their first year of running on EOS. So it kind of gives you a picture in your mind of what that looks like. So that would be a great place to start. Absolutely. Talk to a local implementer like myself. There's nearly 700 of us now around the world who are helping companies run on EOS. So those early conversations are free. So start there and decide if that's the right path for you.
I love that. And if I can just kind of boil it down, the reason why I love Traction and the EOS model is it does give you a very clear vision that you can get your team aligned to. There's even worksheets that you can use, and then we've used consistently every single week. and what we call our L10 meeting. And that's where my leadership team and I, we gather together, we address issues in a very regimented way. And then we expand that into quarterly meetings. So once a quarter, we get together and we have a day-long session where we address bigger issues. We make sure that we're on track with our annual goals. And then beyond that, we have our annual meeting. And in that annual meeting, we talk about, hey, where are we headed for the next year? Where are we headed for the next 3 years? And what is that big, hairy, audacious goal 10 years from now that really sets the standard of acceleration that we're wanting to have in the business? And having all of that has been so helpful for me as the big idea guy. I'm the visionary in the organization, as you know. And luckily, I have James, who's our integrator, and he's got that strength there. And when it comes to just our ability to work together, if since I'm the sole owner of the business and founder, I guess my weight, it can get in my way sometimes, in more ways than one. And so sometimes that can actually trample on people who I've assigned other tasks, other visionary ideas to go and execute on. And so the thing that I love about Traction is it keeps me in check as the visionary, and it gives the director levels, the folks that are required to actually execute, it gives them so much more confidence and peace knowing, hey, they're doing what they're supposed to be doing to be in alignment with the mutually agreed upon vision. And I know that for some businesses, that sounds, sure, yeah, of course, why wouldn't you do that? And for others, they're like, wow, that sounds amazing. I'd love to do that. And for the folks that say, oh, wow, that sounds amazing, it can be done. I mean, EOS, it's not hard. It's actually it just requires commitment. Just like going to the gym, going to work out, it requires that commitment. And I mean, I'm not even an implementer, and I think I'm probably one of the bigger advocates of EOS that I've met. Obviously, you trump all of that, but with all that being said, you've worked with a lot of businesses over the years, right? Yeah. Not just your own, but implementing. How many businesses do you currently work with and guide through this process?
So I currently work with 20 to 25 companies at a time throughout the year. And then as they graduate and move on and they're able to stand on their own two legs, then I just backfill them with the next company that needs help.
I love it. I love it. So what have you witnessed in regard to transformation with those businesses? What are some of the key kind of takeaways that you've noticed over the years?
Yeah, one of the things that I want to pull a thread on is something that you said previously as I work my way into answering that question, is one of the things that companies need most is they need to freely choose that discipline that gives them the running room. Sometimes it's the hope that for the journey ahead, because the journey's hard. Sometimes it's the structure that's needed to make winning easier. Sometimes it's to recapture that loving feeling that they've lost somewhere along the way. So one of the things that happens most demonstratively when somebody starts to implement EOS is you build a cadence of life. And that disciplined rhythm is one of the things that is an early win, and it helps companies understand, I've got to have a meeting pulse for me to stay focused on my goals and my priorities. Otherwise, life happens. And you get distracted, and you get divided, even amongst your team. You know, we may have all come together on a particular day of the quarter and say, "Hey, team, rally! This is what matters to us," and you'll be surprised over a matter of just days or weeks how much fracturing can happen if you don't keep that vision in front of you.
Yeah.
So having that cadence, that meeting pulse is hugely important and a big component of what we would say are the 6 key components of every business. So when you look at companies and what does it winning look like, it's usually those companies that have somewhere along the way realized that there are 2 major elements to running a company, and it starts with choosing well. If you don't choose well, you can't do well. And I used to have a mentor that would remind me often, we don't get to where we want to go by running down the wrong road faster. So if you don't have enough awareness of your organization through insight generation and collaboration and objective measures and a whole bunch of other things, if you don't have enough insight of your organization, you can't predict well. And predicting what matters is the first element of choosing well.
Yeah.
And then you obviously need to have that cadence of life, that rhythm that says, now I know how to do well. What are my operationalization of my business, the systemization that allows me to repeat my wins and keep from repeating my failures? And a lot of what you just described of, hey, this is what we're doing weekly, this is what we're doing quarterly, those are part of those, the cadence of living in a smarter, systemized way.
Yeah. No, that's great. And I would say that I've come across businesses, and you've probably done the same. This isn't meant for just startups. In fact, startups probably struggle to implement traction if you just got, I don't know, 2 people on your team. What I've seen is the businesses that really just sink their teeth into it have about 10 employees at minimum. And I've seen people scale it to thousands of employees. That's the thing I love about this is it is, in my opinion, infinitely scalable. One of our clients, Hardee's Fresh Foods, they're, a massive company, and they've been employing EOS since Gino Wickman wrote the book. And it's been huge for them. And they've even managed transitions in leadership and C-level executives. And it's all gone really smoothly, much more smoothly than it would have had you seen them employing a different framework or no framework at all.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things I love personally is I'm not looking for another framework to adopt when I hit a certain growth level. It is truly, I'd say, infinitely scalable.
Yeah.
And I love that. Would you agree with that? And have you seen that in your own life as well?
Yeah. So the first thing to know about EOS is it's not a new thing.
Yeah.
It's really just a beautifully orchestrated compilation of founding principles, business guiding principles that have been around for 100 years. And Lord willing, will be around and relevant for hundreds more. But to your point, taking something that is already proven to work and riding that wave is a whole lot easier than trusting in something that isn't proven.
Yeah.
So it is absolutely relevant for any business, any organization of any size. And I clarify business and organization because, depending on who the listeners are, I've helped churches, nonprofits, businesses of all sizes run on EOS. And obviously have experienced the same across 2 different industries and 3 different companies. What EOS would say is 80% of the time, the target market looks like 10 to 250 employees.
Yeah.
It's a good place to start. But I've got some companies that are smaller and some that are much larger. The first company I was running, I started looking at EOS somewhere between 600 and 700 employees.
Wow.
And it was completely relevant for me. And EOS, as you stated earlier, stands for Entrepreneurial Operating System. And I think entrepreneurial is the operative word here.
Yeah.
Entrepreneur doesn't mean you need to see yourself as Elon Musk or Steve Jobs. Instead, am I willing to change? Am I willing to do the hard things that are needed for me and my business to change? And if I have a mindset that I would rather embrace the challenge of change than to stay comfortable in status quo, then you're an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And really that EOS would work for you.
I love it. So I know we've talked a little bit about challenges just with that one client that I'm helping, and I'm sure you've experienced this as well, but what are some common hurdles that maybe business leaders can prepare for when they're considering implementing EOS, or maybe if you guys watching today are currently trying to implement EOS and you're just feeling like it's clunky or you're not really getting into a rhythm, what would you say those common hurdles are and how do they overcome them?
Yeah, so if you don't quit, you can't be defeated. So one of the early hurdles is and you said it cleanly earlier, that EOS is simple. Simple does not always equate to easy.
Yeah.
And especially if the first hurdle of entering a disciplined space is new to you, then having a resolve, conviction, and commitment to stay the course might be hard, or to try something new, or to give up the elective lifestyle that we previously adopted and said, hey, I'm going to now turn it over to be a more submitted lifestyle, where it's like, instead of doing it my way, at my own, my way, when I want to, by my own whims, now I'm going to submit to this system, this plan. If that's hard for you, then that's probably one of your first hurdles. Don't give up. It will get easier. You know, it's kind of like going to the gym in the first quarter of the year after you made a New Year's resolution. You're probably knocking some rust off. And then a close cousin to that, where I see most organizations really struggle in seeing this through, is a version of ego. If you have not addressed the hubris in your life and you think you've got this, you're going to take your eye off the prize. You're going to instead think more about yourself rather than your organization, what you're stewarding to your core focus, or what a lot of people would call a mission statement. What is true north for you? What are you bringing to fruition? And if it's all about you, or if you think you've got this and you don't need help, then you're probably going to struggle. And then third, I think the biggest challenge is head trash. You know, if we're living in a condemned state where it's like, this is too hard, I won't ever get this. You know, there's got to be another way. So you chase the next shiny object. All those things will keep you from optimizing and being your best. And instead, a convicted lifestyle is, man, I know I'm going to fail. So let me just identify it earlier, fail faster, fail cheaper, come up, get up, dust myself off, lick my wounds, learn from it, and say, how can I do this better next time? Those are the things that will make us better. And also, while acknowledging the trip falls and hazards that are in our path.
Wow. Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. I mean, anytime we struggle with implementation, I'm struggling with one of those three issues. So I love that. So let's just kind of get down into a little bit more of the grit of execution. So one of the components of EOS is your accountability chart, and the way it's organized. And I don't know if we can get a visual on the screen here, but you've got a visionary, an integrator, and then you've got director levels that report to the integrator. So that could be your director of finance and human resources, director of sales and marketing, director of operations, all that kind of stuff. What would you say is kind of the thing that you see, the maybe light bulb moment when it comes to organizing the leadership team? Because I come across organizations all the time where they've got VPs of this and VPs of that. And I'm like, how in the world are y'all structured? It doesn't even make any sense. Who reports to who and all that kind of stuff, especially in larger organizations. So what would you say the value of taking that approach, the vision, integrator, and so on, is? And what is that light bulb moment that you've seen consistently?
Yeah, so I think one of the strengths of EOS, of many, is the emphasis and the uniqueness of the accountability chart. You mentioned the visionary integrator. If those terms are unfamiliar to you, there's a book written called Rocket Fuel that really breaks down the typification, the stereotypes, and the proclivities of those type of personalities in an entrepreneurial organization. A visionary different from an integrator. And rather than hijack the show all about that, that's a good way to learn more. But at the top of the organization, you've got to have good structure. And one of the ways that EOS does this is it says, hey, every organization has a three-legged stool. And if you don't pay attention to the fact that you've got to bring business in, usually a business development, marketing to sales type function, you're not going to keep winning your sales. If you don't have a good way to deliver on your promises to your marketplace through operational excellence, then you're going to struggle with retention of your clients. And then finally, if you don't manage your finances, you're not going to have the money where you need it when you need it. So you've got to have structure to pay attention to those three primary elements of any organization. So I don't get wrapped around titles. In fact, that's one of the things that EOS does well is it says, hey, everybody who's ever been part of an organization knows of org charts. Well, what we've done is we've taken org charts, pumped them full of steroids, and we call it an accountability chart. And our accountability chart is looking at the structure of organization, saying, hey, the spatial layout and the flow, does it work? Because you can put good people in a bad system and they look like bad people. So we've got to have good structure to the organization. And then instead of titles, usually corporate titles, the VP, the director, the manager of, instead we say, well, what's the functional title there that makes the most sense? And accountability charts inherently are meant for being inside the organization. The business card that still has the VP of what, that's for outside the organization because they need to know how to talk to you and relate. So spatial flow, functional title, and this is where some of the gold starts to come up is we got to create accountability. What is the contract to look like for me to say, I'm putting my name on the line for me to do these things? So what are the 5 roles and responsibilities that are primarily driving the fulfillment of that functional seat in your organization? And then when you understand that about yourself, you understand that about your boss, your peers, and the company at whole, then you start seeing, okay, I know my part in it. I know how it all comes together. And now we have the accountable structure in place for us to work well together and to deliver on our products and services.
That's gold. Okay, pivoting just a little bit as we try to put a nice little bow on EOS. Obviously, guys, you probably know that I'm a fan of EOS by this point in the show. So what I would just encourage my audience today is EOS is something that will work for you. It can work for you. It just requires you to commit to it. So as Rod simply put it, just read the book Traction, or even if you want to make it easier, get a grip. But the reality is, I encourage you, if you don't have clarity about what your annual goals are, what your long-term targets are, if you haven't written down your proven process for how you do business with your customers, where you could, honestly boil it down into, a few steps and say, hey, client, this is how we do business. If you don't have all of that structure, if you don't have a weekly scorecard keeping track of your business, if you don't have all of that, well, it's all in the EOS framework, and I would highly encourage you to do it. So, strategies for actually gaining traction. Simply put, you read the book Traction and you implement it. I don't know if there's any other way to say it, but in your experience, that first step outside of maybe partnering with an implementer, going through that 90-minute meeting, what do you encourage people to do tangibly to get started after they've read the book, after they've maybe met with an implementer, gone through that 90-minute?
Yeah.
What are those steps?
Yeah. So here's a both experience and opinion blended together. So first thing to acknowledge is Traction is a book. You can buy it anywhere.
Yeah.
And everything that Traction provides is really open source. Yeah. You can go to the website, you can download all the tools for free, just like you experienced. You ran on EOS by yourself for a number of years. Call that self-implementing. Contact a local implementer. You can also do that through EOS Worldwide website. Have that free 90-minute meeting, which is a highly efficient download for you and your senior team to learn more about EOS, what it means, what does it look like to do it and do it with somebody else. And then it's like, well, what is it? How do I get started?
Yeah.
And I would say, get started with a meeting. Patrick Lencioni writes a book called Death by Meeting. That was an inspiring element to what ultimately came about for EOS. You know what the weekly level 10 meeting looks like and the agenda components. Life's too short for a sucky meeting. We've got to really be intentional about using our time and using it well and esteeming the high quality outputs and product from a meeting. If you had your first level 10 meeting and you realized, I don't have all of the components that need to go into this meeting, that will usually be a prompter for, I need to go do that.
Yeah.
I need to have that. Do I understand what my priorities are for the quarter ahead? Are rocks, part of the agenda. Do I know what winning or losing looks like, and are we getting insights from our clients, our stakeholders, our employees? Well, those are headlines. Do I have a scorecard that is objectively telling me what am I doing activity-based on a weekly basis that is giving me insight of future performance, not just autopsying past performance? Oh, I don't have that. I need to have a scorecard. Looking at those 5 to 15 measures that are important for the company. What's this IDS thing? Oh, the issue solving track where I identify, discuss, and solve issues. I don't know how to do that. Well, go back to the root material and learn how. That's where I would start, because it gives you early experience that starts putting you back in the path of learning more about your business, objectively figuring it out, and not going through life just based on instincts and willpower.
I love that. Okay, so when it comes to just getting started, I'm going to make sure that we put Rod's contact information in the description of this episode. I'll also put some links to the book Traction, to all the books that you've mentioned, as well as to the EOS Worldwide website, so that you can get access to all of these documents and frameworks and what have you. What I would just end with is this. If you, and what's funny is, Rod, you hit the nail on the head. I mean, people can start utilizing EOS as early as by themselves, just to get the motions going. Some people within my organization actually use this to run their own household. So it's quite funny. But the reality is, just get started. That's it. Just get started. And if you're using other frameworks, go for it. I'm sure they're great, but I don't have to use any other frameworks. The only thing that I would just say is, as a marketing agency, I'm not in love with the marketing component of the VTO. So I do recommend expanding on that as much as you can. It's not a full marketing strategy in that VTO. It is a getting started point. But just when it comes to implementation, execution, the worst thing you could do is nothing. And the best thing you could do is take the first step and grab that book, have your first L10 meeting. Don't have another sucky meeting. I mean, all of those are very easy steps that you could begin implementing right now. Yeah. And I would highly encourage it. So before we wrap, Rod, is there anything, I mean, I know we could talk about EOS all day long, but is there anything that you just want to make sure the audience leaves with, whether it's how to connect with you or just an encouragement? Is there anything that you want to leave with them before we wrap up today?
Yeah. Just get started.
Yeah.
Don't quit. All new things come with their own set of challenges. Yeah. So just keep leaning in. Have a different posture. So a lot of times our mental state is affected by our physical state, and vice versa. But what does it look like to change your posture as a leader for the organization that you're in or are leading, possibly owning? And if you put yourself in a posture and knowing that it's a learning journey, it's like, hey, I don't know everything I need to know yet. I'm going to be curious. I'm going to be hungry. I'm going to keep leaning in. Sometimes it means letting guards down, being more vulnerable, and showing that. When you're present with somebody and hanging out or collaborating or trying to mine the gold that's in them, listen with a posture to understand instead of a posture to respond. It will open your ears and eyes for that learning journey. So please just get unstuck.
I love it. Thank you, Rod. Thank you for making the hike up north to Austin today to hang out with us. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in on this episode of Good Business. If you liked this podcast, share it with a friend. Send it to a friend or family member or another business leader that you know. Give us a 5-star review on on Apple Podcasts if you could. And go ahead and hit that subscribe button on YouTube or wherever you are tuning in today. And we'll see you guys next week on Good Business.